What if I told you that your freedom might be a lie? That most of your so-called choices were never really yours, but cleverly scripted to keep you from ever questioning reality? Sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? But Dostoevsky, he saw it differently. He believed the greatest prison isn't made of bars. It's built from pleasure, comfort, and the illusion of control. Now imagine this. You're offered two lives. In the first, you get everything you want: status, pleasure, wealth, distractions. But you can never question your existence. In the second, you get full freedom, but it comes with pain, uncertainty, and the burden of owning your life entirely. Most people, without even realizing, already chose the first. We numb ourselves with stimulation, entertainment, and self-care, never noticing how each fleeting pleasure tightens the chains. But what happens when that illusion cracks? What's left when you realize you've been conditioned to fear real freedom? Dostoevsky asks the uncomfortable question: who is truly free? The man who lives for comfort, or the one who confronts pain with open eyes? This video might challenge you. It might pull you out of a comfort zone you didn't even know you were trapped in. But if you stay with it, really stay, this journey could be the beginning of your true freedom. Ever felt like you were in control, only to realize your decisions were just echoes of what the system taught you to want? Picture this. A man wakes up, checks his phone, sips his morning coffee, and heads out to work. His day is filled with to-dos, micro-pleasures, and quick escapes. Maybe an overpriced latte, binging a series, or counting the hours to the weekend. He believes he's free. He chooses what to eat, what to watch, where to travel. But here's the truth. That's not freedom. That's a well-designed illusion. Dostoevsky warns us. This version of freedom is paper-thin. Most people prefer the illusion of choice over the weight of real autonomy. In the Brothers Karamazov, he gives us the parable of the Grand Inquisitor, a haunting tale where Christ returns to earth, only to be arrested by the church. Why? Because true freedom threatens the system. It demands responsibility, and most humans aren't built for that kind of burden. We don't want to be free. We want to be led. We crave leaders, algorithms, gurus, ideologies, anything that saves us from the pain of deciding for ourselves. And maybe that's the scariest part. How many of your beliefs, your goals, your habits were actually chosen by you? Or are you just following a script, one designed to keep you safe, distracted, and comfortably asleep? Imagine waking up inside a golden palace. The finest food, endless entertainment, soft sheets, zero responsibilities. You can have anything except the key to leave. At first, it feels like paradise, but with time, you start to realize this isn't freedom. It's a beautiful prison, one designed to keep you quiet, comfortable, powerless. That's the trap we've all walked into. Modern life hands us pleasures in doses, just enough to sedate, never enough to satisfy. We think we're choosing freely what to eat, what to watch, where to scroll, but these aren't choices. They're habits, scripts, triggers designed to reward obedience and numb discomfort. Every little indulgence seems harmless until you can't stop. Dostoevsky saw this long before smartphones and streaming. He understood that humanity would rather be comfortable than conscious. We chase pleasure not because we're free, but because we're terrified of what's underneath. Silence, emptiness, questions we've buried too deep to face. So we consume, we distract, we drown ourselves in the very things that keep us from seeing clearly. But here's the unsettling truth. The more we depend on pleasure, the less we belong to ourselves. We become addicted to ease, allergic to stillness. We need noise, we need novelty, and without it, we feel lost. That's not autonomy, it's conditioning. And the worst part, it feels normal, it feels safe, until it breaks. So pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, If all your comforts vanished tomorrow, no distractions, no validation, no buffers, would you still know who you are? Or would the silence swallow you? If the pursuit of pleasure traps us, then who is truly free? The answer isn't easy to swallow. Maybe it's the one who no longer depends on pleasure at all. Imagine a monk. He owns little, seeks no fame, and desires no applause. To the modern world, his life might seem empty, deprived of everything that's supposed to make us happy. But maybe that's because we measure fulfillment by the wrong standards. This monk isn't running from pain. He's made peace with it. He doesn't need the next dopamine hit to feel okay. He's not shaped by the noise of external validation, because his sense of worth comes from something deeper, something quiet, something immovable. He doesn't avoid discomfort. He sits with it, learns from it, and walks through it like a man who has nothing to lose. Dostoevsky teaches us that real freedom isn't doing whatever we want. It's being free from the things that want to control us. The monk doesn't reject pleasure because he hates life. He does it because he understands its limits. He knows that a life built on fleeting highs is as fragile as glass. He chooses a different kind of strength, the one that no one sees, but everyone feels. And this changes everything. While most people panic when their comfort is threatened, the monk remains still. While others scramble to fix the outside world, he focuses on the inner one. Because his freedom isn't tied to wealth or attention or even certainty. His freedom is forged in silence, shaped by solitude, and tested by pain. But it endures. So here's the deeper question. If suffering is inevitable, could it actually be the key to freedom? What if all your pain, all your struggle, all your suffering vanished overnight? No anxiety, no loss, no failure. It sounds like peace. But Dostoevsky would argue, it's a trap. Without suffering, we'd never truly grow. Pleasure comforts, but pain transforms. Think about it. The moments that shaped you, the real turning points, they weren't easy. They were the nights you couldn't sleep, the days everything fell apart. That's where your soul stretched. Pain has a power that comfort will never understand. Failure humbles us. Loss sharpens our values. Grief cracks open our illusions and forces us to ask real questions. That's why the man who embraces suffering doesn't collapse. He evolves. Unlike the one who fears discomfort and clings to pleasure like a crutch, the one who faces suffering head-on becomes unshakable. This is what separates the monk from the average man. The ordinary person runs from pain. He builds his life around escape. Fast food, fast scrolling, fast everything. But the monk walks into the fire and asks what it came to teach him. He doesn't numb. He listens. He learns. And in that process, he becomes something rare, a human being who no longer fears the truth of existence. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unspeakable horrors of a Nazi concentration camp, once said, "Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning." That's not just poetic, it's a blueprint. When we stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as initiation, everything shifts. We no longer ask, "Why me?" Instead, we ask, "What now?" But here's the catch. What happens when we reject that truth? When we run from pain instead of walking through it? If suffering is inevitable, then escaping it seems like the logical move, right? But here's the paradox. The more you run from pain, the more it owns you. In today's world, escape is easy. We don't even call it that anymore. We call it coping, relaxing, self-care. But behind every scroll, every impulse buy, every binge, there's a silent message. I can't sit with this. And that's where the trap closes in. We live in a culture that numbs everything. Sad, scroll. Anxious, swipe. Lonely, post. But no amount of stimulation fills the void. Because the more we try to outrun pain, the more we fear it. And fear makes us manipulable. It turns us into slaves, not to chains, but to comfort, to pleasure, to anything that promises quick relief, no matter the cost. Dostoevsky saw this coming. He warned that people who can't handle discomfort become easy prey. They'll trade freedom for certainty, autonomy for validation. Their lives are steered not by truth, but by the terror of suffering, and that makes them easy to buy, easy to silence, easy to break. So ask yourself, how many choices in your life were made just to avoid pain? How many paths were abandoned out of fear of failure? How often did you settle, jobs, relationships, dreams, just to dodge the discomfort of change? Escape feels like a short-term win, but in the long run, it softens the spirit and steals your edge. True freedom doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means facing it, owning it, and refusing to let it shape your soul from the shadows. And here's the real shift. What if you could turn pain into power? If escaping pain keeps us trapped, how do we break free? The answer isn't in running, it's in how we interpret the suffering. Picture two people facing the same crisis. They lose their job, their income dries up, and the future is a blur. One collapses, drowning in distraction, spiraling into helplessness. The other pauses, reflects, and rebuilds, stronger, wiser, more awake than before. Same event, different outcome. The difference? One saw it as a curse, the other saw it as a call. This is the split between the ordinary man and the awakened one. The first builds his life on external comforts, money, status, convenience. But these things are fragile. One crisis and the whole structure crumbles. The second builds within. He carves strength into the walls of his mind. He doesn't chase certainty. He develops clarity. He doesn't demand guarantees. He trains resilience. This isn't some abstract philosophy. It's survival. Viktor Frankl discovered this in Auschwitz. Those who could find meaning in their suffering were the ones who endured. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That's not optimism. That's spiritual muscle. The kind you only gain by standing. Still, when life wants you to run, the truth is, meaningless suffering destroys. But suffering that's understood, suffering that's chosen, even embraced, becomes fuel. The goal isn't to erase pain. It's to master how we carry it. Not with bitterness, but with presence. Not as a victim, but as an architect of inner strength. And now that we know this, a harder question comes to light. If freedom demands pain, who's actually willing to pay the price? If you've come this far, one thing should be clear by now. Real freedom isn't easy. It's not glamorous. It won't coddle you. True freedom demands sacrifice, discipline, the courage to face discomfort without sedatives. Now imagine this. You're standing on the edge of a crumbling system, corrupt, hollow, designed to keep you small. You need someone at your side, someone to walk into the fire with. Who do you choose? The man addicted to comfort, or the monk who fears nothing because he owns himself? The answer is obvious. The comfort seeker folds at the first sign of pain. Offer him safety, and he'll trade his voice. Offer him convenience, and he'll surrender his soul. But the monk is untouchable, because you can't bribe someone who doesn't need what you're selling. You can't manipulate someone who already made peace with loss. That's the essence of power. That's the kind of ally who shifts history. Dostoevsky didn't believe freedom was handed out. He knew it had to be earned, through fire, through solitude, through the brutal honesty of facing yourself without filters. No shortcuts, no guarantees, only a promise that the man who's willing to suffer for truth becomes unbreakable. Not because he's invincible, but because he chose something greater than comfort. So now the mirror turns toward you. What are you choosing? Every day, in every small decision, you are shaping your answer. Are you building a life rooted in illusions of safety, or one forged in quiet strength? Are you still asking for a life without suffering? Or are you ready to walk through it on your own terms? Because the truth is this: freedom isn't something you find, it's something you become. And now, the final moment. No more theories, no more metaphors. You know the price of freedom. You've seen the illusion of comfort. You've looked suffering in the eye and seen what it can awaken. So now the question is real, personal, not philosophical, not poetic. Just this: which path will you walk? You can keep chasing comfort. You can numb, scroll, consume, escape. You can cling to the scripted life and pretend that safety is enough. Millions do it. It's easy. It's accepted. No one will question you. But deep down, a part of you will always know you chose the golden cage. You chose sedation over selfhood. Or you can choose something else. You can walk into the fire, face your inner war, peel away the lies and look life in the face, raw, unsanitized and free. Not because it's painless, but because it's real. You'll still fall, you'll still break, but this time you'll do it awake. And from those fractures, you'll rebuild something honest, something whole. Dostoevsky doesn't offer answers. He never promised a formula for happiness. What he offers is a mirror. And in that mirror you see yourself, stripped of distractions, of masks, of illusions. What you do with that image is up to you, because no one can choose freedom for you. It must be claimed, and the path is narrow, steep, and sacred. So now it's your turn. In the comments, leave your answer. Not for me, for you. Can suffering lead to liberation? Or will you continue chasing illusions? If this message reached something deep in you, don't let it vanish. Share it with someone who's ready to wake up. Someone who's tired of being fed lies. Like it, spread it, let it echo, because the more of us who wake up, the fewer servants comfort will have.